And welcome into the Thursday edition, Robbie and REXRODE, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon. Big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. Robbie Stanley, Joe REXRODE, Ian Safar here with you. We are live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Joe REXRODE, still live in the state of Florida. How we doing down there? What's going on? Good morning to you, Joe REXRODE.
Good morning, and thanks to Ian for the pre-show meeting, which was him whispering, "Don't forget your mute."
Nice.
It was a very timely. I don't think I was going to, but I might have. So thank you, Ian.
I mean, the odds would say there's a decent chance.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I'm just gonna, I don't know, hang out here forever, I guess. I mean, I am leaving after the show. No, I have been outside, but not in the sun much. But you know, they keep going, man. They keep going. The coaches are out of here, so the coaches have blessed the coaches' hearts. I'm on their side 100%. They hate the auto bids, but see now what happens is the coaches leave. And so, you know, the people who actually make decisions talk. So we'll see how that goes. But, yeah, I'm out of here after the show. But, I mean, Sankey's going to talk again today. And technically, these things don't end until tomorrow.
Yeah. Now that those coaches are out of here, we can get down to real business. It's kind of what that feels like a little bit later. Now that we got those idiot coaches out of here, we can actually do something.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Coach. Yeah, all right now. Yeah, go play golf.
Which is, I'm sure, exactly what they're doing. Speaking of, 615 open day today, baby. We're going to get after it at Hermitage Golf Course a little bit later, so looking forward to it. Going to be fun out there. Benefiting Folds of Honor. Presented by Gary Force Acura.
Yeah, it's an awesome event. I'm really sad that I'm going to be driving all day instead of that, but I know you guys will hold it down and have a blast and raise money for a great cause.
We will do that. We got a nice team of some Nashville Predators employees, including Nick Barnowski, myself, my good friend Chris Jones of the Nashville Sounds. We're going to get after it out there.
Are you playing with Forsberg? Is Forsberg going to be out there?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Okay.
We're going to see. We're going to see if he, I know he just played in the World Championship, so he's been doing a lot of traveling, but we'll see. See if old Phil's out there.
And Barnowski, you say he's got some game, right?
Barnowski's got game, so we'll see. Yeah. We'll see what happens.
See that
on that front. Ian Safar, how we doing? What's going on?
Oh, doing great. Thank you. Yeah, fun night of playoffs. I guess we got some finals figured out last night, but I guess it wasn't that fun. But yeah, I got some finals figured out. So yeah, doing good.
Those Florida Panthers, man. 3 trips to the finals in a row. Oklahoma City absolutely destroyed Minnesota last night, Joe. Just half of the NBA finals and now half of the Stanley Cup final. The ticket is punched last night.
Yeah, look, I was watching the Carolina Florida game. Carolina fights back, and you're like, wow, maybe they can apply a little pressure here, huh? Maybe they can apply a little pressure, get that tying goal midway through the third, but Florida's just up to the task, man, and Florida might be up to the repeat here.
Yep, third trip in a row to the Stanley Cup final. They've hired Paul Maurice. This is his 3rd year, and it's his 3rd trip to the Stanley Cup final. That's a pretty good percentage. So we'll see what the Florida Panthers are able to do as they move forward here. Likely against Edmonton, but we'll see. Game 5 of Edmonton and Dallas coming up tonight, and then Oklahoma City likely taking on Indiana. So we'll see what happens on the other parts of those series as well. The Phase 3 portion of the workouts in the offseason began for the Titans on the field yesterday, Joe, and a lot of different discussions yesterday as it relates to the Tennessee Titans. I saw our good friend Nick Suss put out some observations on the Cam Ward front and how quickly he gets the ball out of his hand and all of those things. Brian Callahan hopped on the stage yesterday before the press conference even really started, Joe, and started talking about how, hey, guys, just so we don't have to do this every day, don't put too much stock into like who's going where and what's who's first team and all those things, especially as it relates to quarterback, because none of it really matters right now. So he kind of threw that out there immediately yesterday, Joe. So we'll see what the response to that is going to be from Titans fans as we go throughout the day today. He did bring up Will Levis and the progress that Will Levis has made working out over the summer with Jordan Palmer out in California and the improvement that it looks like he has apparently made, according to Brian Callahan. Here's what Brian Callahan had to say yesterday.
How's into the new quarterback room, and what have you seen tangibly out of his work with Jordan Palmer?
I've seen a lot of improvement. I really have. I think him making the decision to go put in the work down there with Jordan was really beneficial. I got a lot of respect for Jordan. I think he's got a good program. He knows what he's doing. It's good off-season work. I see a real improvement in his footwork and his base. His ability to control the football has improved. I've been really pleased with the work that he's put in. He's reacted really well to the room. Will's going into his third year, so he understands what being a professional quarterback is. He understands what that you're competing every day at that position to keep your job. I've been happy with Will. I've been pleased with his production and his work so far. He's had a good offseason.
So that was Callahan yesterday, Joe. What do you make of the discussion around Levis to this point and Callahan's stance on the quarterbacks yesterday? Pay no attention to what's going on right now because it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, this guarantees that every single press conference for Callahan until the season starts will be, why was the reps? Why was Will getting those reps? So I'm counting on you, Kaharski, to be an absolute pain in the ass on this every single day. But yeah, it's probably worth a shot by him,
Sure.
And I don't know. I mean, if that's the case, like I could see that in the spring, just moving things around. You really the reps really matter once you get to training camp. Now, then it's different, right? I mean, once you get into training camp, you're really preparing for the season. You've got everybody. Those reps are valuable, and so at that point, it is newsworthy if it's anything but. In my opinion, if it's anything but Cam Ward getting the ones reps, Cam Ward getting prepared to start, all, understanding the whole idea of competition and earning it and all that. I mean, that's just what I think it should be. And the thing is, you listen to him talk about Levis, and this is what we've talked about. I absolutely could see, Will Levis in the same offense for a second year as a talented guy outplaying Cam Ward. And Cam, I mean, that's totally possible. I mean, Cam Ward, number 1 overall pick, high hopes for him. He might end up being great. And obviously you hope that he's a much better quarterback than Will Levis. But is the talent level, sometimes you bring in, like you have a veteran or whatever, you bring in, a high pick, and it's like there's a clear, huge gap in talent level. I don't think there is. Now, Will Levis has so far demonstrated that he can't get it done on game day. He can't put it all together. But in a practice setting, I could totally see Will Levis. I think he has the tools to outshine Cam Ward. So, look, from one perspective, it's like, what is wrong with competition? What's wrong with pushing someone? It's just, to me, it's like, I personally feel like when you have a situation like this, when you basically say, okay, the whole franchise is now going to be in the hands of this person, I just start as early as possible, just devoting everything to that. I don't think you're coddling a guy when you do that. But I mean, Kaharski has a different perspective on that, and I guess we'll see how it works out.
Kaharski does have a different perspective on that, which led him to writing a piece yesterday, Joe, at paulkaharski.com, and the headline is, "Why I Keep Will Levis." A close look at the Titans' number 2 quarterback situation. And I'm not going to sit here and read the whole thing, but I will read kind of his opening graph here, which I think is interesting. It says, Titans quarterbacks finished throwing to all their pass catchers, and it was time to flip the drill. Will Levis put his head down, sprinted to join the receivers and tight ends he had just helped lead down the field with passes. Was it a token gesture or a meaningful moment? I don't want to make too big of a deal out of it, but it was something. And J.C. Latham thought so too. And, goes on to have a quote from Latham about it's notable, Will Levis setting the tone, and you got guys on the field showing a sense of urgency, and Will Levis doing that out there. So, I mean, Kuharski's perspective, and he's not alone here. We've heard from Titans fans that feel this way too, is there's not a whole lot of harm in keeping Will Levis around, and he certainly would be your best option as number 2 quarterback. That is the perspective that Kuharski, among others, have. So we'll see if the Titans share in that perspective. I mean, your point about the practice part of this, I think, is well taken, right? I don't think it's far-fetched that Will Levis could look good in practice. We've seen Will Levis looked good in practice before, right? I mean, it's not like that's
Yeah.
coming out of left field. And I'm sure that the offseason work he has probably improved. That's also, Joe, where I think as a coach, if you're Brian Callahan, this has kind of been my theme all offseason, and maybe I'm making it too much of a theme. You got to have real limitations on what practice means to you. I think that would be one lesson that I would have learned if I'm Brian Callahan after year one. Real limitations on what practice actually means.
Yeah, but then like some football coaches will hear that and say, "Well, practice is everything," except of course it's not. I mean,
Clearly
it's
not.
everything in terms. Yeah,
Right.
well, it's everything until you get the other information,
Right.
right? I mean, that's all you have to go on. But yeah, no, I mean, it's interesting. I do. It's also like I've thought about this, like how things have changed. I feel like we used to have more teams where you would have, I don't know if it's like co-starters, but like, ongoing competitions. And it's just like at any other position. I'll go back to my beloved Detroit Lions.
Yes.
As a child, it was, we had Gary Danielson and Eric Hipple for years. And it was just, they would just sort of just alternate. I hated Danielson and loved Hipple personally. So some people were Danielson people, some people were Hipple people, but like they would just go back and forth and one would start for a while and I feel like a lot of teams it was more like that. Gosh, it was like Tommy Kramer and Wade Wilson for the Vikings. I don't know. Even like the Bears always had like Mike Tomczak and I don't know. It just, again, I'm listing a lot of crappy quarterbacks, right? But I feel like it's much more now like who is the guy,
right,
and everything. So, I mean, look, especially if like you don't have confidence like that Brandon Allen can, win you a game in a pinch or whatever. I guess I would say then sign someone better. But
yeah,
but I mean, if there's a huge gap and it's like, hey, it's good to have this guy around, that's fine. But again, when Cam Ward struggles and has a terrible game or a terrible couple games in a row, that's where, locker room that wants to win, one guy looks better in practice, et cetera, et cetera.
Some interesting comments from Will Levis yesterday that we'll get to coming up next as well. That's where we're starting today. The OTAs for the Titans. Take your thoughts on that. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Robbie and REXRODE, 1025-1063 the game.
Great. Last 6 weeks have been fun, getting back here with the guys. We're not training on my own out in California, so that was a lot of fun for about 7 weeks. And had some time with the family and time to enjoy the rest of my life outside of football.
What'd you learn from going out to California with Jordan Palmer?
I mean, it was a lot of just kind of relearning my stroke, just relearning like my body and trying to get back to the basics with him. And I feel like it's definitely paid off. Been feeling good.
What's it feeling like for you going into year 3 and obviously new faces in the room?
I mean, I feel more and more comfortable every day. It's it's all it takes in this position is just reps and experience, and try to take advantage of it anytime that I can to improve. I'm just pumped about not having to learn a new offense. So that's been fun to kind of get to the level of 300, 400 of the playbook, and being able to go out and just run anything without really even talking about it, which is cool.
As Will Levis yesterday, coming off the field after Titans OTAs. Joe says he's very pumped about not having to learn a new offense. Says he's had to do that a few times, and now he's at level 3 or 400 of this offense, and he can just run whatever he wants. Interesting comments from Will Levis yesterday. It's great not to have to learn a new offense out here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, it's got to be good, right? It's got to be good for him, and just an advantage. In terms of you would think that that he'd be able to come right in and snap his fingers, and then the whole working on the base footwork. Look, I still wonder. Most people, I don't think, can ever really like change their accuracy, but it's possible. We have seen it happen. So if he's better, again, that's good for him. And maybe this thing plays out to like preseason games. Levis gets a whole bunch of run. Levis looks really good, and a trade, like a little bit better trade, materializes because of that. Or maybe they don't want to do that at all. I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe they don't. Well, I guess we'll find out as they move forward here. A couple things he did talk about yesterday. Levis talked about, by the time that the Titans got around to drafting Cam Ward, he knew that the Titans were drafting Cam Ward, right? Like, it wasn't a huge surprise to anyone. It certainly wasn't a surprise to Will Levis by the time that came around. One quote that he had yesterday, quote, "Anyone who's ever been in my situation would agree that it sucks. I'm just trying to do the best I can and not let it affect me, and just being the same dude every day in the building and being there for guys however I can, and just trying to get better every day." So I think a little bit later in the press conference, like, the idea of him getting moved somewhere else came up, and he didn't really want any part of getting into that, and said basically he has no control over that. So Will Levis saying all the right things at this point, and now I guess we'll wait and see over the next few weeks into the offseason and certainly into training camp whether or not there's a move to get him out of here and to allow him to move on with his career.
Yeah. I mean, in the meantime, look, you are more talented. You are more talented at that position. You aren't very talented at many positions. So you look at it from that perspective, and anyone who could be a good football player for you, I guess it's good to have around. So it's just he's a big personality, and he's got some relationships on the team. I mean, I don't think that any of that is necessarily. I don't think that's like going to bother Cam Ward or anything like that. But it's just interesting. It's just a little bit different dynamic than you see a lot anymore with these high picks. Usually it's a little bit more of a veteran who's being supplanted, like a Cousins in Atlanta, for example.
Well, in all seriousness, Joe, to that point, like, I know they've said, Callahan got there yesterday and was basically like, this at this point in the offseason, we're still teaching, and who lines up where doesn't really matter, which is fine. Like, if that's the position they have, I don't really have, I guess, any problem with that, in late May. But I am interested, like, once this gets to training camp, and we all, again, know what the score is, and that Cam Ward's the guy, I am really interested to see how they handle this. Like, how do they view the reps that they're going to give out? How do they view, like, Brandon Allen's role in there? Like, if deep down their goal is to move Levis out of here and maybe to get some draft compensation for him, be that a 6th round or whatever it is at the end of this, if that's their goal at the end of this, I'm really interested to see how they divvy things up in the quarterback room as it currently stands when actual training camp reps get thrown out there, and How much goes to Brandon Allen? How much goes to Will Levis? I mean, I think we would all agree that Cam Ward is going to get a lot, and he should get a lot. But how much beyond that is going to Brandon Allen and Will Levis, and how's that divvied up?
Yeah. So Ed on the text line says, again, Kaharski's agreeing with his fellow New Jerseyan, Kaharski. I don't think New Jerseyan is right, but whatever. He says, what's wrong with having Levis improve and push Cam? Isn't that a good thing for Cam? Yeah. Yes. Okay. But again, so let's play it out. Remember, this is supposed to be a total meritocracy, right? So I could totally, like I said last segment, see Levis being better right now than Cam Ward. Knows the offense like the back of his hand. He is very talented. Again, I don't think talent level is very different here. You obviously, as a Titans fan, you hope Cam Ward's a better quarterback.
Right.
He's a much better player, but talent level, I don't think it's much different. So, okay, yes, improve, push Cam, all that stuff's good. But what if he's flat out better? And and then you come out and say, yeah, I mean, Cam gets all the ones reps. Okay, well, what is that telling the team? That's what I would do, by the way. I think it's what they should do is they should have Cam Ward be the first team quarterback and the Will Levis should be get the 2s and 3s reps and then play in the preseason. And I think that's what will happen. But again, if it's truly a meritocracy and he is better than him, which is not a stretch at all, sometimes a football team can have a problem with that, right? Well, now those guys know the score too, but still, like they know Levis, they like Levis. I think he has good relationships on the team. So if he's better than him right now, then how do you justify not giving him better reps?
What does push Cam Ward mean, right? That's what I keep coming back to when we have these conversations. Because there's not an actual scenario where Will Levis is going to be starting quarterback of the Titans, guys. Like, he's just not. Like, there's no way that Brian Callahan is throwing Will Levis out there to be the starting quarterback week 1. I'm here to tell you, it's not going to happen. So, like, what does push Cam Ward actually mean when we all know that Cam Ward is going to be the starting quarterback week 1? I don't know. I don't know what we're going back.
Push-ups.
Yeah, like I don't know what pushing Cam Ward actually means when we all know that Cam Ward's going to start.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only thing I could say is, like, I guess if you're Cam Ward and you're seeing Levis, what he's doing with reps, seeing what Levis is doing on the field when he gets his opportunities in the film room, Levis has the answers, stuff like that. I mean, I guess you could be like, okay, Cam's got to be like, okay, well, I certainly have to get to that where that guy is.
Yeah.
Right. So there's that, but I'm with you. It's like, I mean, if there's any chance that Will Levis could start or would get these reps, then to me, you are now, you're not pouring into your number 1 overall pick the way you need to. Right.
Yes.
Like that's the whole thing is like, I'm sorry, but like you have said, this is the guy, this is where take a guy 1-1, he is the guy. And again, you have to put everything into getting him ready.
And again, the fact that we're having this conversation, Joe, to me always gets back to, this is why you need to move on. This is exactly why you need to move him out here. And look, nobody's excited about Tim Boyle being here. I get that. And frankly, I'm not all that excited about Brandon Allen being here. But again, we're talking about backup quarterbacks. And the fact is, like, if Cam Ward goes down and is hurt for a significant length of time this year, this team's cooked, regardless of whether it's Will Levis's backup quarterback, Brandon Allen's backup quarterback, Tim Boyle's backup quarterback. Like, there are different levels to it. I get that, and I recognize that. But the idea, like, if Cam Ward's not starting for them this year, then how much of a chance do we feel like this team has? Basically none.
Right. Yeah, I agree. So it's like, now, you say that, who knows? Maybe it plays out that they're better than we think, and Cam starts, they win. He gets hurt, and Levis comes in and wins a couple games, and they're in the playoff hunt because of that. Great. I mean, if that's the case, then it all worked out. But again, if it goes the other way and it's bad, and Cam really struggles, that's where I just they're already a bad team. But in the locker room, it's like, that's where it can get to a little bit of like, man, I mean, I think Will could probably give us a chance to win. It sucks to lose.
It does.
And these guys on this team, especially the guys who have been around for a few years and have gone through this crap, they don't want to go through it anymore.
Well, but everything you just said is exactly right. But this is exactly why Will Levis is never going to approach starting for this team again, because Brian Callahan knows all this. And organizationally, they have decided that they are moving on, right? Like, they have moved on to a different player, to Cam Ward, who has been given the keys to their franchise. Brian Callahan is well aware of this. And it makes no sense for a minimal, potentially short-term game. Let's say they get through camp and, maybe Cam Ward struggles a little bit and you say, maybe he needs a couple weeks. I just don't think it makes any sense organizationally when you've totally shifted and you've changed you have made the decision to move on from Will Levis as your starting quarterback. Like whatever short-term game may be benefited from starting Levis for 2 weeks, I think it's totally outweighed by everything else to that point, the decisions that you've already made, which is why he's never going to start again for the Titans.
Yeah, which is why. So if we all agree it's going to be Cam game one, they'll say whatever they'll say, competition and all that stuff. But he's got to start game one, and so if that's the case, then he needs the reps. So gets back to that and what you're going to do in practice, which again I think is what we're going to see. But I guess we'll see.
I guess we will. 615-737-1025, our phone number. More of your thoughts to get to on the Titans front, plus the latest from REXRODE down at the SEC meetings in Florida. We'll get into all that coming up. The best and worst things in sports later this hour at 645. All that ahead. Robbie and REXRODE, 1025, 1063, the game. Welcome back in. Robbie and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon. Big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. A couple more thoughts to get to real quick on the Titans front, Joe, before we check in on the latest with the SEC. Devin from Dover saying Will Levis's problem has never been his arm or his accuracy. He throws the ball right where he means to. Problem is it's usually the other team, his decision-making. It's bad. Cam Ward needs every single rep that he can get. This from Devin from Dover on the text line, Joe.
Yeah, I disagree. I mean, I think I guess I could agree that like the biggest problem would be some of these bad decisions, but his accuracy is not consistent. I mean, and that's let me listen to Callahan yesterday, about controlling the ball better, working on that base. Too many throws sail on him. Even when he makes the right decision, he makes some tremendous throws. He has a lot of talent, but I think that if he's going to be a starter in this league at some point somewhere, that accuracy, just the ability to hit it in the spot more often than he does, has got to improve. And that's what he's been working on. That's what he's been talking about: footwork, having that consistency with the mechanics to create that accuracy.
Well, and by the way, Cam Ward, also spoke and talked about kind of his development and what's going to this point, and says, quote, "I know I still got a lot to work on, got a lot of processing to do to play in the NFL, but I think I'm getting there at a rapid pace, and I'm excited. I just think the biggest thing for me is just taking it day by day." So, I mean, it feels like Cam Ward is pretty comfortable with what's going on to this point. Again, we're in May, so we'll see what happens by the time training camp rolls around, and then what the reps and everything else is divvied up like as it relates to the quarterback position. But Cam Ward feeling good.
What I like is Cam Ward now at both the draft and now on our program, overshadowed by lesser quarterback.
It's good thing.
Overshadowed by the 5th round QB and then by a backup QB. Couple quick things that I thought were interesting too yesterday. Well, one, first of all, I don't know, are people upset at Jeff Simmons? He's like the one guy who, Kaharski had this piece too, because I think Kaharski made sure to find out about who all was around, and basically Simmons is the only guy who's not.
Yep.
I personally don't think that's a cause for like anger, but I don't think it's ideal.
I don't love it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, again, we're talking about, like it or not, one of your necessary leaders, a guy who they're still going to be looking at to provide some leadership and also to be one of their best players. I don't love it. Like, again, I don't think it's the biggest deal in the world, but I don't think it's ideal. And then I thought it was interesting yesterday, Callahan talking about Latham and his weight loss and all that stuff from last year.
Yep. Also
sort of putting a little bit of context to his struggles. And basically, it's funny because a lot of times, football players will tell you it's hard to keep weight on once you get into a season, type of thing.
Yep.
But then again, there's plenty of time to eat in a week,
Sure is.
especially for the big fellas. So it's good. I guess also self-awareness from Latham that, like, you have to be in better shape. Your feet have to be quicker. So we'll see if we see a difference this year.
Joe, what are some of your latest takeaways from down in Florida at the SEC spring meetings as it relates to everything we've discussed this week, be it the college football playoff, the transfer portal, everything of the like?
Yeah, I mean, it's look, first of all, there's not going to be resolution this week. I don't think, there was some talk yesterday, like, what if they just say, okay, we're doing 9 games? But it's this really interesting thing where you got this auto bid thing, which we think is stupid. I think a lot of people think is stupid. And the Big Ten really wants this. The Big Ten is pushing without question. And so yesterday you had, and I think Ross Dellinger from Yahoo had this first, there's an AD call and the AD call of the Big Ten. And the AD call of the Big Ten is, well, basically they'll consider other things if the SEC goes to 9 games. Well, the SEC, of course, is like 9 games is contingent on the auto bids, because then, again, if you have the auto bids, you no longer, you basically are locked in with your standings, really determine, you're going to get 4 teams every time. Now, I think you're limiting yourself if you're the SEC. especially if it only goes to 14. But even at 16, I think you're limiting yourself with the auto bids and giving the Big Ten 4. And that's why I think the SEC coaches are like, screw that.
Yeah.
And good for the SEC coaches. So the SEC coaches they want auto, or they want at larges. They want 5 autos, and basically you just expand the field. Do the ADs. I think the ADs are still more toward knowing they have that money. So now the coaches are out of here. So where does the discussion go today with the ADs? Again, I don't think there's going to be a resolution, but there's a lot of jousting right now on all these things. And we know that the ACC and Big 12 are like, hell no. They made that clear yesterday. They want if it's going to 16, they want 5 auto bids and 11 at larges. That is what it should be, but we'll see. And again, the SEC 9 game or not, I still think there's a chance they go to 9. I mean, Sankey now is openly saying like he's been wanting them to go to 9 for a while.
Yep.
Right. So I still do. I think it's possible they go to 9. I am less bothered. I'm way more bothered by auto bids than I am them staying at 8, but I'd like to see them go to 9. I'd like to see them go to 9. And I'd like to see them also still play a good non-league game. Here's another thing. If you go to 9, but what you're saying is, okay, then we're going to back off on some of these big non-league games. That's not good either. I would rather see everybody play a good big non-league game. How are we going to compare conferences?
Yeah.
Other than just the SEC is the best. Yay, go SEC. And they probably will be, but I'd like to see these leagues play each other. Some of the top teams play each other to give us context so we have a little bit of, the results that actually do matter and inform the selection committee.
Yeah, if it means staying at 8 where you feel like you got to do that, then stay at 8. I would say let's all grow up a little bit and play non-conference games, and you could still schedule one pretty good non-conference game at that point. I'm not asking you to schedule 3 good non-conference games. Just do one, and then we'll live with that, and I guess we'll just worry about the 2 clunkers in the schedule and non-conference later on. But I would take that right now. I'm at least encouraged that Joe, I thought when this week began that there was a chance that by the time we got to an end of it, we'd just be talking about, well, it looks like we're on a one-way train to auto bids. It doesn't look like we're at least just on the one-way train. There's a nice discussion to it. So I'm encouraged by that. I'm with you. There's a lot of things I don't like about all this. I've grown to hate the idea of auto bids, I think, more than anything else, more than the expansion of the playoff, more than the not playing 9 games, all of it. I'm so out on the auto bids, and it's good to know that the SEC coaches are too.
Yeah, and I think most people are, again, other than the people who are directly impacted by the financial implications of what's coming, And again, I understand the perspective. I don't want them to win. I hope they don't. And so then who makes the decision? Well, the presidents actually make the decisions, which of course is part of the issue with college sports is that, the people who actually don't know anything about what's going on in a lot of cases are the ones that ultimately, and I mean, a lot of them listen to their ADs and do what they say, but that's where it can get convoluted. So, no, I'm encouraged too. On Monday, I was like, my God, they're just going to do this. And I don't necessarily think that anymore. There's a lot. I mean, look, with all of this, think of it in terms of money and inventory. And it's like, okay, you want the 9th game. You want good games. You want the good non-league game, right? You also, if you don't go to, because as much as I hate the playing game idea, it is a lot of inventory, and like it or not, they'd be on campus sites, and they'd probably do well, I guess, in terms of ratings and all that. Even though, again, I think it's gimmicky and stupid, but if you're not doing that, then are you just doing your regular championship games? That's where it gets into as you expand the field, that weekend that has been championship weekend. Is it just, championship games involving, for the most part, teams that are already in who don't want to play in those games. They don't want to get hurt. They don't want to be Georgia and lose their quarterback. You see, that's where then it gets, personally, I'd like to see the playoffs start that weekend. But, now you have all these other discussions and iterations off this.
Brandon on the YouTube chat wondering if you've seen Glenn Ellerby down there rubbing sunscreen on Josh Heupel's back. Can you confirm or deny?
I have not seen Glenn Ellerby. I don't think the assistants really get invited.
Ellerby didn't
But
show up. That's good.
I mean, I haven't seen him, so I'm not saying he didn't show up. Maybe he's like, hey, Josh, hey, man, I'm at the beach. What are you doing down here? All right. Oh, I'm supposed to be recruiting? Oh, shoot. No. But Heupel, I will say, man, like Heupel's been hanging. Like, people are impressed with Heupel. Heupel's kind of like chilling down here, which I think is cool.
There you go. And
Yeah.
Heupel enjoying some beach time down there. 615-737-1025. Our phone number. The best and worst things in sports. Coming up next, we'll take your best things, your worst things on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Robbie and Rex Road, 1025, 1063, The Game.
The best and worst of the sports week. Now on Robbie and Rexrode.
On ESPN.
102.5 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
This is the worst. You look like you're feeling sorry for yourself. Believe in miracles? Yes! Unbelievable.
He's one of one. He is him.
This is a Coke bottle. It's not a crystal ball.
When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
Okay, let's go.
It is that time of the week. Time for the best and worst things in sports. We'll take your best things, your worst things on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Joe Rexrode, kick us off with your best and worst things in the world of sports.
Okay, well, we talked, a little bit about this earlier. But to me, my best is Paul Maurice and the Florida Panthers. And some of it's obviously they're great. They may be passing the cup around again this summer. It's a tremendous team. But also just Paul Maurice, like his pressers are always awesome.
He's the best.
Yeah. I remember, when the Preds played the Jets back in 2018, being around that series, and I know you were there too, and it was like the contrast between like Laviolette and Paul Maurice pressers was like, oh my God, you guys have got it so good in Winnipeg.
Yep.
Also, God, how the heck did Winnipeg let him get away?
Yeah, it's a good question.
You
man.
know?
Well, I think, he had reached the point, I think, there where, he kind of pulled himself away voluntarily, but, it kind of felt like at that time he might retire. And then like 9 months later, he's in Florida. Ended up being a great decision for him. Really good job by Paul Maurice.
Yeah. Got out of the peg.
He did.
So that's my
to
best.
a very different place, by the way.
Yes, exactly.
Opposing weather climates.
Yeah, and I understand it, Paul. I do. My worst is Tony Petiti in the Big Ten. I know it's an obvious one, but yeah, look, I guess it's worth a shot, man. It is, and obviously, you've taken this way further. When I first heard this idiotic idea in February, I was like, yeah, there's no way people are serious about this. This is some kind of weird trial balloon, and it's not that. Like, they really want it. It's just I people talk about Greg Sankey and the good of the game and all that stuff. Well, Tony Petiti is a guy you need to look at and then ask that question about the good of the game, but he's not available for questions.
There is that. Ian Safari, your best and worst things in the world of sports.
This one is a little lighthearted. This is kind of funny that I saw from awful announcing from your Tigers. Joe, the best thing. Did you see this Tiger grounds crewman who got injured?
He's all mad.
And they had the EMS, all this kind of stuff come out here, and then they zoomed in on him. You flipped him the bird right on the TV. He's just like sitting there, ruptured Achilles or something. I'm speculating on that, but he can't move. The camera zooms in on him, and he just gives him the bird. I have the audio, but
it was beautiful.
And the guy just
love it.
The broadcaster just goes, "Well, you can't do that."
Well.
So that was pretty classic. Poor guy.
That was great.
Couple of worse things. I got two. One, of course, is the Knicks. My Knicks not looking good against the Pacers. It's just, a bunch of 90s flashbacks here, and it's just not been fun. Besides the fact I brought this up last week, Reggie Miller on the broadcast. All right. So I brought that up. So yeah, not good. And then I'm going a little off the cuff here with a worst. Saw some of these Indy 500 AI Michael Strahan videos going around this past week.
Okay.
From, I don't know, I guess they had like a little bit that they did of Strahan, how he always wanted to be a race car driver.
Okay.
And they had this like AI video of Strahan and like a young Strahan and like getting in a car and like all this kind of stuff. So it was just pretty rough. It was
AI
bad
stuff is freaky, man.
So I'll throw that as like a, I don't know, last second.
It's freaky.
Worst.
Absolutely freaky. My best thing in sports,
AI.
Vanderbilt baseball, baby. Number 1 seed again in the NCAA regionals. We'll see as they kick things off tomorrow what they do if they're able to get out of the regionals for the first time since 2021 and advance to the supers, get out of the supers, get back to Omaha. But it's a great accomplishment for Tim Corbin and this program to get back to being at the top for now, and we'll see what they do in the postseason. We talked the other day, Joe, about how important it is for them to move out and take advantage of the spot they're in. But to this point, an incredible accomplishment for Tim Corbin and Vanderbilt. They win the SEC tournament as well. So Vanderbilt baseball, my best thing in sports. My worst thing, the conference finals in general have not been good. They've not been as competitive as I hope that they would be heading into this, especially for conference final series. And then to add on top of that, Zach Hyman gets hurt for Edmonton. It sucks when anybody gets hurt, but like I especially hate it like later in the playoffs when like significant contributors get hurt for teams that are right on the verge of winning the championship. That just that is not good. My honorable mention best. I don't know if you guys have seen the videos of this cheese roll that they do in England every year where all these idiots are chasing the cheese down the hill. This one dude in particular took an unbelievable fall this year, and it's making the rounds everywhere. He did like 5 somersaults, and it's incredible. I think it's the best sporting event on the calendar every year.
Like it's amazing how violently some of the people fall. Like, some people are like, they kind of get, they can run down the hill and they're okay. It still looks like, my God, you're going to blow a ligament. Right. But like some of them, once they start tumbling, it's like, what kind of hill are we talking about here, man? It's like they're just getting slammed into the ground and stuff. It's wild.
Well, has anybody ever caught the cheese roll? Like, I mean, that thing gets moving, you're not catching it. Like, so, I mean, it's a violent thing. But every year it happens, and people, I don't know how some people haven't like broken their neck with the way that they've done it. Like, go watch the video.
Will.
Just Google cheese roll, and you'll see the dude I'm talking about that took the fall the other day. I mean, I don't know that I've seen a somersault down a hill quite like that one.
Surprised he didn't break a collarbone.
Yeah, it really was incredible. It really was.
Unbelievable, man. Adam Portland's got worse than Caitlin Clark's hamstring. That does suck. At least a couple
2 weeks?
weeks or quad. Is it quad hamstring? Yeah. Oh God, what the best thing is the prop bets that Angel Reese will miss the first shot. Oh, you're an Angel Reese hater.
I have seen that. There's these dudes that are making a lot of money off Angel Reese. Apparently, there's a prop bet for her to miss the first shot. Apparently, she's done that a lot, and these guys are getting a lot of money.
Wow, interesting. Yeah, she's the very different players. That's for sure. Best in Nashville, SC from Joy from Bellevue.
Yep, playing well.
So give them
unbeaten
some love.
streak again last night. 2-2 draw.
Yep, playing well. Keith says
Indy 500.
Yep.
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
no, you're good. We're all over the map on the best and worst things in sports today. So good stuff. Keep them coming on the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. There is a Nashville Predator that is now being brought up in some trade rumors that are beginning to bubble up out there. We'll get into that coming up next. Robbie and REXRODE, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Hour number 2, Robbie and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. Live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you. Make sure you tune in to 94.9 The Fan today as the Nashville Sounds take on Indianapolis. Pregame beginning at 5:20. And the first pitch at 5:35. Coverage also available on the Game Nashville app and at thegamenashville.com. Sounds baseball on 94.9 The Fan, presented by Twin Peaks and Family Leisure. We'll have Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports coming up to begin the 8 o'clock hour. We will get into all things Tennessee Titans and NFL with Charles. So looking forward to that conversation coming up later in the program. The Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode coming up at 7:45. And taking your thoughts in the meantime, 615-737-1025, our phone number. We are edging ever closer to the Stanley Cup Final, which means the launch of the NHL offseason right behind it. We've talked a lot about the Predators, their draft picks, and the selection at number 5, which we will get more into as the NHL draft gets closer. But we're getting right around the time of the year where people start to talk about, all right, we know who the free agents are going to be out there. What about trade targets? Who could be potentially moved this offseason? And they were having that discussion yesterday on the Daily Face-Off Live kind of podcast with NHL insider Frank Saravalli. And Saravalli put together his trade target list. And at number 5 on the list, he had Jonathan Marchessault of the Nashville Predators. And here was the conversation brought up yesterday on the Daily Face-Off podcast about Jonathan Marchessault and potentially him wanting out and being available this offseason via trade.
If you're a team starved for goals and you don't like Kreider, maybe you go down a couple of spots to Jonathan Marchessault. 1 year through his deal with the Nashville Predators, he's on your trade targets board, Frank. And listen, I guess we talked before about how Nashville might have to attach some assets to get rid of some money and free things up. Is Marchessault a guy that they could actually get some value for? And part 2 of my question would be, he has the partial no movement clause. How open is Marchessault to moving on after just 1 year?
I think he's pretty open. I think it's within reason. Like, isn't going to probably accept a deal to just about anywhere, depending on how he shapes his list. But I do think that when you look at his season, as down as it was for a Preds team that really, really struggled to score as a whole, he's another guy still ends up with 21 years in a bad year. And at $5.5 million, not an exorbitant contract by any stretch of the imagination. It's the term on it that's problematic for a 34-year-old. But if you're a team out there knowing that the cap is rising significantly and you have aspirations to take a big step forward next year, why can't Jonathan Marchessault be part of that in a 30 to 35 goal clip if you're betting high? I think it's a relatively low risk move, and I think he's open to the idea. I think in a perfect world, he would love to go to the Montreal Canadiens and go home. I don't know how open they are to that, given the term on his deal, but you could see him helping a pretty good offense already kind of continue to take that next step, and feels just like a true Marty St. Louis type player, doesn't he?
So that was the Daily Face-Off Live podcast, Joe, on Jonathan Marchessault. It says a few things there that are very interesting. Number 1, Frank Saravalli putting it out there that he thinks Jonathan Marchessault would be open to being traded this offseason. And then connects a team to it, says in a perfect world, I think he'd probably like to go home to Montreal and play for the Canadiens. Now, the Canadiens apparently were in on him last offseason before he signed with Nashville. And according to some of the reporting out there, just weren't willing to go to 5 years. I think 3 may have been what they offered. So, Joe, I'm trying to piece all of this together. You've got the decision by the Predators to retain Andrew Burnett coming back as head coach. We know the comments that Jonathan Marchessault made after the season. Barry Trotz also talked about Marchessault and said that, he'll leave some of the comments and conversations that they had behind closed doors. But you got all that in the backdrop, and now you've got Frank Saravalli putting it out there that he thinks Jonathan Marchessault would be open to a trade and names Montreal as a place that he feels like Marchessault would want to go. So what do you make of all this as you try to piece all of these different bits of information together?
Yeah, well, certainly that it's possible. And we talked about it back when, when Burnett when it was official that Burnett was retained, it's like, is there like, is it good to have Marchessault, and they've aired it out, and maybe a little bit too much in the media, but like is that something this team needs more of, or is it kind of like, well, if you're keeping Burnett, maybe Marchessault would be more likely to be moved just because he has gone kind of public with some criticisms and things like that, and it does seem like with some of the comments from other players that there's a little bit of, like, I think the Stamkos one, like, you can complain all you want, but, I mean,
Right.
who are they talking about? They're talking about him, right? Again, I don't know. There's definitely like, is the room too nice kind of feel around this team too, but it seems like, I mean, like obviously listening to that from the Marchessault perspective, he's open to it. And I don't know why anybody wouldn't be after that kind of season. Like, if you have that kind of season and you're looking at the kind of the lack of ability to do a lot to change the team, I could see you being pessimistic about next year.
Well, and Montreal had a heck of a run in the second half of the year. They've got kind of a young nucleus there where maybe he could come in and be a guy that, propels them a little bit and accelerates what they've got. So I understand it from that standpoint for sure. Like, I do wonder, like, do the Predators view it this way as well? Because, I mean, you did make a huge financial commitment to all these guys last year, right? With Shea, Stamkos, and Marchessault. And we don't have to relitigate how bad last season was. It was terrible. We all know that. Are you giving up and pulling the plug on it after 1 year? And if not, if you are open to moving him, what are you looking to get back? Because they were talking there about an idea of, like, would Nashville have to retain some salary? Would you have to attach something to it if you're the Predators, like a draft pick or something, to get somebody to take on the rest of his deal at that point? Like, I agree with the cap going up the way that it is. I don't think that Marchessault's $5.5 million per year is like immovable. I do think the term of 4 years left at age 34 is going to scare some people, and they're just going to say, yeah, we don't want that. We don't want 4 years left with Jonathan Marchessault. I have no idea how the Montreal Canadiens would view that, but if you believe the reporting, I mean, a year ago they weren't willing to go to 5 years. So has their idea changed on the term based on what the season they just had was?
Well, yeah. So, a lot of these deals, you figure, last year or two, that's tough, but maybe because they look like it's like, okay, now what if you did add a couple nice little veteran pieces? What does that mean? Maybe they look at things differently based on last year.
Maybe so. I mean, it could be. And, it's a very interesting dynamic they've got going on right now because, Barry Trotz has talked heading into the offseason about hockey trades. He wants to make hockey trades. Well, I don't really know what the hockey trade you're going to make for Marchessault is if teams are that worried about the term on the contract. Now, maybe they can pull that off somewhere. And by the way, if they're open to moving him, it doesn't necessarily have to be Montreal. Like, I do think there's a limited no movement clause that he's got in his contract. So there are going to be some teams that are automatically off the list. But, like, I heard that from Saravalli yesterday, Joe, about how he's open to it and then names Montreal by name. And I wonder, like, if behind closed doors, when Barry Trotz made the decision to bring Andrew Brunette back into the fold, then Marchessault look at him and say, yeah, try to move me this offseason. I don't know that. I'm not reporting that. That's just where my brain went. That's the speculation that I've got is it possible that Marchessault got through the end of all of this and said, yeah, I'd really like you to try to move me this offseason?
Yeah, no, I think it's absolutely possible. There was also the thought there of, like, it's got to be the right place, which of course makes sense. But yeah, I could see that. I could see that. Maybe it's just, or maybe it's just back and forth. Maybe it's just best if you were somewhere else. Yes, maybe it's best if I was somewhere else. You know? I think that's definitely possible. And like, he is, as we've talked about, he is more movable than others for sure. Agree. And less of I mean, I still, like, to me, the ideal incredible turnaround for the Preds to become what we thought a year ago they might be. I look at everything else they have, and it's like, so you're still having to replace, a guy who could certainly be a 25, 30 goal scorer next year, right?
Yep.
So, how do you do that? What are you doing to replace that? But if there's a addition by subtraction element here, then maybe that's it.
Well, and also, does Barry Trotz look at it after 1 year of an experiment that obviously didn't work and say, man, if I've got a chance to unload one of these contracts this offseason, I'm going to take that chance? I mean, I don't know. I don't know how Barry Trotz views that. I mean, Jared has made this argument, and I guess if you view it this way, you're right. I wonder how the owner views it. But at the end of the day, the only thing you gave up to get Stamkos, Marchessault, and Shea was money, right? Like, it's not like you gave up draft capital or prospects or anything like that. Now, that is the owner's money. And if I'm the owner, I'm like, yeah, well, that's great. That's a lot of money that you gave up to go get all these guys.
And there is a salary cap.
And there is a salary cap, and the cap's going up, and all that's great. But I wonder if Barry Trotz looks at it and says, you know what, if I've got a chance to maybe unload most of this contract heading into the offseason, that may be something that he's willing to do. So it's been thrown out there. Jonathan Marchessault could be open to the idea of being moved this offseason by the Nashville Predators. Frank Saravalli of Daily Faceoff throwing it out there that maybe Montreal could be a preferred destination. What do you make of that? And should the Predators try to move him this offseason? We'll take your thoughts on that. 615-737-1025. The PFL World Championship semifinals are coming up Thursday, June the 12th at Municipal Auditorium, and you can be there. Just text in the keyword match to 615-737-1025 to be entered to win a pair of VIP ringside tickets. Visit pflmma.com/schedule for more details. This is Robbie and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. 1025 The Game is your racing station. Tune in this weekend for all the NASCAR races at the Nashville Super Speedway on The Game. Presented by Green Trees. Tomorrow it's the Rackley Roofing 200 at 7 o'clock. Saturday, the Tennessee Lottery 250 at 6:30. And on Sunday, the Cracker Barrel 400 at 6 o'clock. Coverage also available on the Game Nashville app and at thegamenashville.com. Green Trees Company, a family-owned cannabis company and dispensary located in Hendersonville, and a new location in West Nashville, available online at greentreescompany.com. Taking your thoughts on Jonathan Marchessault, 615-737-1025. Frank Saravalli putting it out there that Jonathan Marchessault, he thinks, would be open to the idea of being moved from Nashville this offseason, and listed Montreal as a place that he believes Marchessault would prefer to go. So will the Predators try to do that this offseason? Should the Predators try to move Jonathan Marchessault this offseason? That is our question to you. A couple of thoughts to get to on that front. Brent on the YouTube chat says, don't attach a draft pick to dump Marchessault. Joe, by principle, I agree with that. Question is, like, if you're hell-bent on moving him, if you're the Predators, and that's the way that you have to get somebody to take his contract and the term left on it, how open would you be to doing it if you're Barry Trotz and the Predators? Now, to be clear, like, I don't think it's going to take one of the Predators, like, first rounders to move Jonathan Marchessault's contract. So I don't think it's going to take, the 21st overall pick or whatever it is they've got at the bottom of the draft this year to move Jonathan Marchessault's contract. And if it did, I certainly would not do that.
Yeah, they got draft picks. So if you have to, as long as it's not something ridiculous, I don't think it's the end of the world. I mean, you got, like, obviously it's not like when you get to 1 year into a deal like this and you're trying to move a guy, like you got to eat it a little bit, that's just how it is. So I don't think it's the end of the world considering the draft capital they've built up.
Chip from Mount Juliet says Marchessault will be gone. With Trotz, it's in or out, much like we saw with Duchesne. Once he spoke out in the media, which are all true comments talking about Marchessault, I knew that his days were numbered. This from Chip from Mount Juliet on the text line. Joe, I'm sure that Barry Trotz, when he heard Jonathan Marchessault just kind of air it out to me over the offseason, probably didn't love that. I don't know if that means that, like, it was just as soon as he saw that, Barry Trotz was like, well, we got to get him out of here. But I do wonder, going back to what I said last segment, like, clearly this has been a process here of Marchessault and Brunette and Trotz, along with probably some other players, trying to get everything figured out and on the same page. And Marchessault said it at the end of the year of, what we did didn't work. So clearly we got to change some things here. And I just wonder how Marchessault feels about Brunette specifically, and if this could be maybe driving this conversation heading into the offseason.
Yeah. Yeah, like I don't know that I buy. I mean, look, Barry Trott's been a coach in this league for a long time. He's dealt with players who weren't happy, players who popped off in the media, right?
Yeah.
Every single one of them immediately given a one-way bus ticket out of town. I mean, you can't do it that way. But yeah, this whole conversation that we played last segment, it does, it does make you think a little bit like, okay, like the conversations, whether it was like, I need to be out of here or not, just that it might just be better for all parties if you can find a solution. Again, I say, though, what is your, who is coming in who can make an impact? Because I think somebody has to be, right?
I would assume so, because
easier said than done, but
it's way easier said than done. But also, Joe, like, I keep going back to this point, and Steven Stamkos was pretty, adamant about this with some of his comments. Like, there's, I think, an idea with some in the fan base that look at it and say, well, they were so bad this year that Barry Trotz is going to look at this and he's going to say, well, let's just go complete youth movement here, and we'll just have like Forsberg, Stamkos, and Yossi and those guys just kind of floating in the wind out there. And I don't, like, that's not the message that he's conveyed to these older guys. Now,
can't be.
That doesn't mean that he's going to go into this offseason and pull off a trade for, Tage Thompson or somebody like that. But it does mean, I think, that he has communicated a plan to them in the offseason with the intention of getting back to being a competitive team next year. Whether or not he's going to be successful in doing that, I have no idea. Like, this could be as simple as they get back into camp next year and, through the first 10, 15 games, it becomes clear that they're just not very good anymore. That very well could be their reality. I don't know. But I can tell you, like, Barry Trotz, to me, has clearly communicated some sort of plan to this veteran group that he's going to try to do something this offseason to where they're back and they're being in a challenging for a playoff spot next year and then going from that. What that move specifically is, I don't know. But Joe, like, if you freed up Marchessault's money, would that make you more likely to maybe try something this offseason that you weren't necessarily prepared to do beforehand?
Right. You move him, and now maybe there's some sort of trade possibility that's a little bit more viable, with the space you created. Craig says, if you're not getting anything in return, why are teams trading away players? What's wrong with telling a player, hey, you signed this contract, play and deal with it? Well, yeah, but I mean, the question is it untenable between this player and your coach? You obviously chose the coach. You said that we're going forward with this coach. Now, again, like you said, Robbie, it may not be for too long. I mean, not be for too many more hockey games, but that's what you did. So I don't know if that's the case, but sometimes you might be better off moving on yourself.
Yeah, maybe so. And we've got a texter that says you move Marchessault and Shea back to Carolina and do what he wanted to do from the beginning and get younger. Like, I don't think you can do that now. Like, they did not want to go rebuild a couple years ago, and they didn't, and they're not just going to do it now. Like, they're not going rebuild now, not intentionally at least, right? Like, they didn't try to go rebuild this last year, and they ended up third worst record in the league. So, I mean, you kind of did. You ended up with a top 5 pick, but it wasn't by design this past year.
Well, you just said, so Yossi, Forsberg, those guys can just drift in the wind as their careers peter out. But again, also the goalie who starts the huge deal this year,
right?
Who you certainly hope against hope that there are multiple great seasons left of him. But why are you how about we wait a couple more years to see if he's good then?
Yeah.
Let's see if like in 27 Saros is great. Really?
Makes no sense.
You have to win now. There's no way. I don't understand anybody who thinks anything but that. I understand Stilly wants to wait and see how some of these, mid-level prospects pan out in 2031. Great. But no, reality in the real world is that you have to win right now.
Well, and again, what is that move this offseason? Is Marchessault part of it? I don't think you're getting a huge return back for Jonathan Marchessault if you decide to move on from him based on the term left on his contract. And look, the bottom line is, Joe, if you're trading some of your players, and this is an issue you run into with the hockey trade idea that Barry Trotz is talking about too. Like, if you're trading some of your players, almost all of them are coming off bad years, right? Like, Philip Forsberg wasn't bad. Philip Forsberg, if you look at the point total, had a pretty good year at the end of it. You're probably not moving Philip Forsberg. So other guys that you'd be interested in moving potentially didn't have very good years. So you're not selling very high on those guys if you're trying to trade them.
Exactly. And so okay, so try to just get young, be bad, but again, you're going to be stuck with plenty of old guys still. You cannot get totally young unless I guess you just buy everybody out. What about that? You want to buy or just sell pennies on the dollar and just be like the worst GM in the history of sports.
Yeah, it's a really tough spot that they're in. Now, I mean, who knows? So, I'm sure as free agency gets closer, we'll start to talk about some of this. Now, Barry Trotz has said that he doesn't really love the free agent class this year and does not expect them to be overly active in free agency. I'm sure they'll sign a guy or two. I don't think they're going to be like totally inactive in free agency, but I'm sure they'll make a move or two. But like this, that was also when he had those conversations, that was earlier in the offseason. And as he's thought about it, and if they do decide to try to move Marchessault, does that change your free agency plan if you're the Predators heading into the offseason? There's a lot of different layers to it that I think could be pretty interesting here.
Adam in Portland said, how irritating is it that if you take out an 18-game points break, Brunette definitely gets fired. Now we're talking about moving players that ... Yeah, that don't go on. Again, to me, I don't look at this as like, oh, well, then he doesn't like Andrew Burnett. Burnett's our coach. We got to move him out of there. But it's just like, does he fit? Look, he complained about things. So maybe it's on both sides of it. It just isn't a good fit.
Maybe, and that may be the best thing. Again, I still come back to, I don't know all of the inner workings of how Jonathan Marchessault was in the locker room. I know based on the rest of his career, Joe, like he hasn't been that bad. I think a lot of his teammates really like him, and he won a Conn Smythe Trophy as a playoff MVP on a Stanley Cup championship team, right? So, like, he's clearly carved out a way of doing things in his career that have worked. Maybe it's not a good fit here. Maybe with how bad last season was, he started to really grind people at the end of the year. I don't know, and maybe they think it's the best thing to move on from him. But I still go back to the idea of, like, I think you kind of need a guy like that, and I wonder if there's a way to salvage it if you're the Predators.
Yeah, like I think there is some merit to the idea of someone who's willing to just say whatever. There's some real nice guys in that team.
There are. There's no doubt about that. And Barry Trotz said it. It's not just us saying it. Like Barry Trotz says, sometimes they're probably too nice in there. So I took note of that, and I wonder how they address that this offseason. 615-737-1025, our phone number. A couple more thoughts to get to on the Marchessault front, plus another study that REXRODE has found that really highlights Titans fans well. Again, Titans fans doing well in these REXRODE studies that he's found.
Yeah.
We'll get into that coming up next as well. Robbie and REXRODE, 1025, 1063, The Game. Welcome back in, Robbie and REXRODE, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. I got a pair of tickets to give away to see Incubus performing Morning View in its entirety, plus the hits, with special guest Manchester Orchestra and Paris Jackson coming up at Bridgestone Arena on Wednesday, June the 25th. Be caller 4, 615-737-1025. Caller number 4 will win a pair of tickets to see Incubus coming up at Bridgestone Arena on Wednesday, June the 25th, 615-737-1025. We'll have the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode coming up at 7:45. Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports will be with us at 8 o'clock. We'll get into the Titans and all things NFL with him. So looking forward to that conversation. A lot of different thoughts on the Jonathan Marchessault front. We'll get back into that later in the program as well. Joe, you have another fan study that you found that really does a good job of painting Titans fans in a good light. You found a lot of things that make Titans fans look really good this offseason, including this one, which means that we have some of the most well-reasoned and non-angry fans around when it comes to the National Football League.
So look, I'm not going out of my way to find these. Okay, I swear. And this is a bookies.com thing. So I think a lot of these things are, I don't know, these people go out and do these studies, and this is Jared, PR Communications, cdcgroup.com, bookies.com. But I think there's more merit to this one than the last one, which was like loyalty of fans, and it was like basically like attendance after the worst year or during the worst year after. I mean, that one was flawed.
Yep.
But this one I think is interesting. This is a report analyzing the use of profanity on team subreddits in the past year. Okay. They're ranked in descending order from the most used profanity to the least used per 1,000 posts.
Okay.
And the Tennessee Titans fans, congratulations. You are 30th in terms of the most foul-mouthed NFL fans. You are some of the cleanest mouthed NFL fans in the league. I'm very impressed. And by the way, Robbie, you as a Green Bay Packers fan, 31st, tied with the Kansas City Chiefs. The Packers and Chiefs, only 72 out of 1,000 comments from Packers and Chiefs fans include profanity. Titans, just a little worse. They're 30th, like I said, with 74 out of 1,000 comments involving profanity. So way to be, Chiefs fans, I can see it. Like, they win all the time.
Yeah,
so
what do you got
like,
what do you got to be mad about?
Yeah, like, hey, I mean, other than I love that effing Taylor Swift, or whatever.
Sure.
Like, everything's great for them. Packers a little bit disappointing last year. Sorry to bring it up.
Thank you.
Titans fans, for as bad as things have gone, to be that, I think maybe there's a little bit of like Southern, gentlemanliness. Maybe that's part of this. I don't know, but congratulations. Now, let me just ask everybody if you can guess who the most foul-mouthed fan base is.
Oh man. I'm going to
Actually,
go.
The top two are absolutely perfect.
I'm going Patriots. That Boston area has got a chance to be a little special up there. I'll go Patriots. Are they in the top two?
That's a good idea. That is a
Thank
very
you.
good idea. No, number one with a bullet, the New York Football Jets.
Yeah, that was going to be on the list.
154 out of every 1,000 comments. Thank you. 154 involve profanity. So
I thought it'd be more.
So more than double what Packers, Chiefs, Titans fans. Now, number two is really fan perfect placement. Not at all surprised, but like they have nothing to be mad about. Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah,
fans.
well.
But you know what? That totally makes sense.
It's just part of the lexicon.
Yeah, their team just won it all. I promise you, in the season opener, like they're gonna like bring out the Lombardi or put up a banner, and yet they'll still boo the first.
Yeah, they'll boo Santa again, right off the bat.
Absolutely.
Yeah, in the middle of the summer, doesn't matter.
Exactly. First, anything that bad they immediately boo their team. So
It's also like they go 3 and out on the first drive, and they'll start booing Sirianni and Jalen Hurts. It's like, geez, guys, calm down a little bit.
Oh, it's amazing. So then you go Bills. And I mean, to me, like, I don't know if any of these studies, and I don't know how you would do it, could give us blood alcohol content per fan base. I think the Bills fans would, but there's probably some correlation between drunkenness and swearing. So they're third. and then you're Patriots. So we're very, very heavy in the Northeast with the bad language till we get to the Bears, which is actually kind of warms my heart. The Bears fans are high on this list with 127 out of 1,000 comments profane because they just suck, and it's a beautiful thing. So love to see it.
Michael in Madison says they clearly didn't poll me after the Bengals playoff game a couple of years ago. One texter says swearing is a sign of high IQ, something strongly missing from the Titans subreddit. This is from an unnamed texter on the text line. Rexrode, how do you feel about this? As weaving the tapestry of profanity, to go back to one of the best all-time movies, A Christmas Story. How do you feel about this and the Titans ranking so low in this regard?
Well, look, again, I'm actually so I've never heard this. I have to react to this post. Swearing is a sign of high IQ. If so, I'm a freaking genius, man.
That's what I'm saying.
Wow. Is that? I've never heard that. That's not really true, is it?
Don't know.
I thought the opposite.
You can find a study for anything.
Yeah, that's true. So I'd love to think that that's true. David from Paris, Rexo can find favorable fan studies about Titans fans, but can't find a gas station. Good job, Joe. I found it. Like I knew where it was.
Yeah,
I just had to walk to it. Yeah, just didn't quite.
Well, in fairness,
Rexo's
not really finding the fan studies either. They're kind of being presented to him.
They're being sent to me, and I'm like, you know what? The last one, I kind of felt bad about making a segment out of it because it was kind of dumb. I mean, right? But I think this one's kind of interesting. I think it's a worthwhile. I like the idea. Let's go through these 1,000 posts and give me the. I mean, you range from 154 out of every 1,000 comments with swear words. Now, I don't see the definition of swear words. Like what is.
What all qualifies?
Yeah, what qualifies? But still, whatever. You probably stuff that you would expect. All the way down to the 72. I mean, that's a pretty big range.
I take pride in the two teams that I basically follow, or it's like singing "Kumbaya" out there all the time with the Titans and the Packers.
Exactly. A gentlemanly conversation. Tally ho, perhaps. Is a term used by Titans fans. And again, it's like, so if you look down at the bottom of the list, I mean, the Jags are down there too, but that's probably because they don't even. Like that, I don't even know if they're able to post on. Have they figured out the internet down in Duval yet? I don't know.
You're going to overtake Corey Curtis for public enemy #1 down in Duval.
Yeah,
Travis Hunter is who we've been hunting up.
Let me tell you what, if they hadn't found it yet, they're going to find it out pretty soon.
By the way, I like right there that Travis Hunter is who we've been hunting. Did you guys get that?
Thanks, James.
Yeah. Lions fans are 10th here with the most profane, which is Cowboys 9th, Giants 8th.
Yeah, I thought the Cowboys
Browns,
might have
Raiders.
a chance to be a little higher.
Yeah, so Raiders, Browns, Giants, Cowboys, Lions round up the top 10. So, I mean, some of it totally makes sense. With the big city, the Northeastern Raiders fans, that makes sense to me. I'm trying to think at the bottom of the list here. Say you got some, you got New Orleans, you got Jacksonville, you got the Titans. I mean, a little bit of Southern, watch your language, watch your mouth, bless your heart.
Are the Arizona Cardinals fans, are they really upset all the time? I figured they'd be near the bottom too.
They are, why can't I find them?
Are they on the list?
They are 20th, 86 out of every 1,000 comments.
A little bit more angry than I thought.
Yeah. Now, if you looked at comments on, I'm totally blanking on video game names, so I just blew the
Call
joke,
of Duty.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. And maybe that would be different. I don't know.
The Call of Duty chat. It's going just profanities flying wild out there with their quarterback leading the way.
You never know.
We'll see.
But yeah.
Still tense up every time I hear it. Every single time. Good stuff.
That's close, right?
We'll have the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode coming up next. Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports will be with us coming up at 8 o'clock. This week's Nashville's Best Deal of the Week, 312 Pizza Company in Germantown. 312 Pizza Company serves the best pizza in town, as well as Chicago-style eats like Chicago dogs, Italian beef sandwiches, and more. Head to theGameNashville.com/deals to get half off a $30 gift card to 312 Pizza Company while supplies last. This is Robbie and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment. Let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant, now on Robbie and Rexrode.
Okay, thanks, Coach. Yeah, all right now. Yeah, go play golf.
615 open day today, baby. We're going to get after it at Hermitage Golf Course a little bit later, so looking forward to it.
Now you will go to sleep, or I will put you to sleep. Check out the name tag. You're in my world now, Grandma.
You got some golf on the TV, which fired Joe up in the break.
Oh, yeah. More polyester pants. Tally-ho!
Can I ask you something?
Sure thing. Shoot, Timmy.
Danny.
Danny. You take drugs, Danny?
Every day.
Good.
I smoke weed constantly. I smoke weed constantly.
It is that time of the day. Time for the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode. Joseph, with that beautiful introduction in the background, the floor is yours.
Very fitting. Very fitting. Little Caddyshack. Good stuff from there.
Great film.
How many times have we imitated Kahursky's I Smoke Weed Constantly?
We add to it every week, I believe.
I guess so. By the way, real fast, this is Scott sent me one of the, it looks exactly like the type of study there's no way this is true. What? It's a very elaborate, it looks very professional, well done. It's the drunkest NFL fan bases based on blood alcohol content readings. When are the readings done? Is this just people who have been arrested? But it says the Titans fans are number one at 0.0937. But also the Jags and Jets don't have readings, and Chiefs are down at a 0.05. I don't understand how you could possibly do this study. I doubt this is real, but I mean, it's funny to talk about. Titans and Colts fans, number 1 and 2. Okay. I would not have guessed that. Some of the people on the text line are saying, this is a bad sign. It's like a sign of apathy, Ed, and some people saying that. I guess, but maybe Titans fans have adopted just the Hubert Davis way of going about life. The Colts, fart them.
Maybe so.
I mean,
yeah, he's like, I
That's
want him
very
to slap
violent.
the fart out of you. I'm
Yeah.
like,
I don't guess that would count in the actual the rankings.
right. No, I mean, so maybe that's spreading. Maybe the Hubert Davis way of avoiding profanity is spreading.
You're doing the Lord's work here on the show.
Yeah, that's right. Farting A, buddy. Okay.
The fact that you amuse yourself with it really is the best part. He says it every time he just starts chuckling.
I'm just every time I imagine Hubert Davis screaming at his team, say, "What the fart are you doing?" It's just amazing. All right, so today I'm gonna use this platform to do two things. One, to promote an athletic story by me. I just don't feel like I've been, I just haven't been doing that. I mean, it's harder now, doing just college football. There's not as much that crosses with the show. I did have a story today about quarterback dads that I thought turned out pretty interesting, about basically the absolute nightmare that quarterback dads are. Within doing that story, I talked to Donovan Dooley. Now, I've interviewed him before. He's Joe Milton's QB coach.
Oh, yeah.
He's also QB coach for a lot of other people, including Bryce Underwood, who's the 5-star going to Michigan. But Donovan Dooley wrote a book with Teddy Greenstein a couple years ago about quarterback dads and sort of all the issues with them, and he ranked them in all these categories. But here's my rant, and this is something, Robbie, that this is one of those recyclable rants. In the midst of this book, which is a great book, and I very much enjoyed it, but one of the themes that keeps coming up in this book is from, in particular from coaches, the don't specialize, right? And so every time I hear that, it triggers me. So again, let's review. I totally agree with the sentiment that, when we grew up, I think you guys could probably be the same as me. I know for my age group, you played a different sport every season.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, for me, it was just simple. You play football, you play basketball, you play baseball. That's what me. And I didn't play soccer. Obviously there's a lot more choices now, things like that. But you play different sports. You work different muscle groups. It's healthier. It's better. 100%. As a parent, my whole thing was I don't want you guys just doing one sport. Let's do different things. But if you actually have gone through being a parent, in youth sports, you understand. Unless your kid is a superstar athlete, and if your kid is, I agree, switch up. But unless your kid is one of those athletes that's just a couple steps ahead of everybody else, you can't do that, man. And I wish, like, so when you're trying to talk to parents in general and you give them that advice, it sounds good, but go through life with a kid who's, working hard and he's similar in terms of athleticism to a lot of other kids. And if you don't specialize by the time you start getting into 12, 13 years old, then you go ahead and watch what happens in any sport you want to be in, because the other kids are, and they're doing it all year, and it sucks. I agree. I wish it didn't happen, but it does. And so if you don't do it, you will fall behind. That is reality. So I hear you. Don't specialize. Superstar 4 and 5-star athlete. Don't do it. Everybody else, I'm sorry, but you do not have that choice. Ideally, you can at least try. You have to do some things to try to do different things. Again, not work all the same muscle groups all the time. But once you get into the high school realm, I mean, football may be a little different, but like if you're baseball, whatever it is, if you aren't working on that year round, you're just going to fall behind. And I just think that people have this disconnect with the larger population and the reality of what that is. And every time I hear it, I'm like, guys, yes, but like look around, be logical about it. If a kid is working on his pitching or his hitting or whatever soccer skills all year round and has personal coaches and does all those things, and then you're bouncing around from different sports and you're the same general level of athlete, that kid is going to kick your kid's butt. I'm sorry. And it gets annoying sometimes that like people seem to think that people want to specialize just because they want to specialize. I mean, everybody would like it to be more diverse, but it's just not how it is.
REXRODE hates your kids playing in all sports. That's what we learned here on the program today. He doesn't like multiple sports for children.
Yeah, fart all that.
You got me in mid coffee sip there, and that was almost bad. That was almost bad. You know my favorite part?
I welcome your thoughts on this.
I welcome your thoughts as well. 615-737-1025. I'm sifting through your quarterback dad story right now, and the best part to this point, because I've gotten 3 words in, is the picture of Nick Iamaleava at the top of it. It's just you open the page, and there it is. It's Nick Iamaleava, baby. Good stuff.
Yeah, he would definitely be one of those top quarterback dads that inspired the story.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about that. Charles Robinson, go ahead.
By the way, Nick did not respond to a request for comment. I texted him.
I bet he didn't.
He didn't respond.
I'm stunned by that. Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports will be with us coming up next. We'll get into the Titans and all things NFL with him. Robbie and REXRODE, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Final hour, Robbie and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Thursday morning. And we head to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in our good friend Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports. Charles, good morning. How are you?
What's going on, gents? How we doing?
Well, I just want you to know that in the time since you've spoken with Rexrode here on this program, he's gone through a lot to get back to this point. He survived a tick bite, which was a scare for a little bit. He ran his family out of gas on the side of the road in Kentucky and has now made it back to the program live from Florida. So a lot of things going on for Rexrode to get back to this point.
I'm glad that tickpocalypse is over, that he didn't end up dying from a tick bite.
But
Joe,
luckily, when I ran out of gas, Katie was very calm and not mad at me at all, Charles, as you know.
I'm sure that was a totally rational time in your life. The fear of feeling the automobile running out of gas with Katie inside it has to be a very even-handed experience, I'm sure.
Charles, I want to know just an estimated monetary value on your part. How much money would you have paid to watch Rexrode walk more than a mile down the side of the interstate to go try to get gas?
Was Katie walking with him?
Nope.
Got
separated.
No. A lot. I would have paid a lot.
It was like Olympic fast walking. It was really impressive.
Just beautiful.
Man, I love it.
Well, Rexrode, we're glad you're back with us this week to have this conversation with Charles. So, Charles, I saw, speaking of conversations, one that you guys had on your Inside Coverage podcast with Jason Fitz and Frank Schwab about Cam Ward and whether or not he can change the culture in Tennessee. We've talked today on the show about, Brian Callahan coming out yesterday and saying, pay no attention to who's taking snaps where at this point. It doesn't mean anything at this time of the year. So
right.
What are kind of your thoughts on that, the quarterback room for the Titans and Cam Ward trying to come in and change the way that things have operated around here?
Yeah, that's always the argument we got into was, Frank gets all disheveled because he doesn't like this idea of not just coming out and saying Cam's the one, this is how it's going to go, just like right off the bat and just moving forward with that. Whereas I guess my rationale on it and why coaches do this kind of thing is I think there's just no momentum to drafting the quarterback and then just automatically saying he's our starter. Whereas you give a kid an opportunity to come in, learn, and even though it's sort of a faux win, he wins the job. He takes the job over, and it sort of gives you a way to engineer the first win for this quarterback coming into this situation. I know some people won't like that. I get it. I totally understand it. And I likened it to when I went through Denver last year, and I'm talking to Peyton, he's going on and on and on about Knicks. And then, he's saying to me, but, hey, Stiddy could be the starter, Jarrett Stidham. I'm like, come on, man. I'm like, what are we doing here? Like, you just went all over the map, telling me how Bo Nix has all these attributes and everything you want and what he can bring to the franchise, the locker room, the leadership. And then you turn around and you tell me Stidham could start. I'm like, this is a joke. And I get that frustration, but I also understand, some coaching staffs are just like, look, we're not going to do this where we're just going to hand a job to a kid because of where, we took him in the draft and have him feel that sense of, going into the season or going into training camp where, it's already his. So now what is he really driving toward? It's a song and dance, and there's going to be, I'm sure, a lot of talk about reps and, what does it look like, especially if you get into full squad and it's like, okay, they're splitting the one, reps. How does that really help Cam if he's not getting all the one reps? It's a worthwhile conversation. I don't think there's any real damage done until you get to training camp. And if you start to advance from 1 week to the next, and it's not clear that this is all tilting in the direction of Cam Ward, then I think you get a little more nervous because you're like, all right, Will Levis isn't going to be the starter here. That's not going to happen. So why are we taking things off of Cam's plate as we start to get closer to the real games actually happening?
Yeah, that's my whole thing. Is I know some Titans fans laugh at this, but I think it's absolutely possible for Will Levis to outplay Cam Ward in practice right now. He's got a year head start on him, and he's talented. That's very possible.
It's practice. It's also practice. Like it's practice.
Sure,
and it's
but again,
and
but that it's so if that you can't, like you said, you can't dictate reps by that. But if you're actually, so then if it's a faux competition, everybody sees through the faux competition.
Right.
It seems like too much hassle for me, but whatever.
So let me give you an example of what happened in Minnesota last year. So Minnesota, Darnold was outplaying McCarthy in practice, and I went through, and that the practice I was at, Darnold had a much better practice, cleaner, just looked better throwing the ball than McCarthy did. But then McCarthy stepped on the field in a couple of exhibition games, and he had some huge strides, and all of a sudden it was like, ooh, this is shifting. Like McCarthy is definitely taking this over. Now that I would say that was a more realistic situation where it was a competition between the two, because the Vikings were completely fine. Even if McCarthy hadn't suffered the meniscus injury, they were completely fine sitting him. Like, let's just put it in the garage, and when we take him out of the garage, it'll be the right time. But we feel like Darnold could definitely, start for us. But you saw McCarthy in that situation advance. He clearly was not the better practice player, but it got better, consistently from one week to the next. And then he played in these preseason games, and he had a couple really good, stretches. And then it was like, okay, now this is remixing, and this kid, could be our starter, when the regular season starts. This is obviously Tennessee's different. I don't think there's any, I would not think at this stage that there's any thought that, like, yeah, let's make this a real competition and Will could totally start. But I'm sure, as you said, Joe, there's definitely there has to be some thoughts going through the coaching staff's mind that, hey, we do have a guy who is in here for this is his third year in the NFL. It's his second year in the same offense. Players generally do get better from one season to the next. And I'm sure, I think there's still growth there for Levis, and he has tools. I told you guys before the draft that just from a tool standpoint and kind of like how he's put together, Levis is he's got as much to bring to the table as any of those quarterbacks that were coming off, in the draft. It's just what that translated to on the field ultimately. So, I think, I don't know. It'll be an interesting conversation. I just don't see any way that, unless Cam Ward is just terrible, once training camp starts, I just don't see any way that it's not, shifted in his direction, kind of the way it was in Denver with Bo Nix. Like, you could feel it. You could see it shift into his direction and go the way that Peyton ultimately wanted it to go. And then, he was the opening day start. I feel like that's the same thing that will ultimately happen with Cam. But, I'm a proponent of not just going, hey, we drafted you in the first, you're our quarterback of the future, so it's your job, right out of the gate.
So, Charles, some pretty interesting comments from Terry Bradshaw earlier this week on a radio interview regarding Aaron Rodgers. And we talked about that on the show yesterday, including a quote that said, go somewhere and chew on bark and whisper to the gods out there. So Terry Bradshaw clearly not a fan of how Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers are handling this situation. So what do you make of those comments from Bradshaw and where things currently stand with Rodgers and the Steelers?
Yeah, it's interesting because he labeled it a joke, the pursuit of like bringing him in for a year. And, Terry's obviously says he speaks his mind, and it's not, I don't think it's necessarily new that Terry's kind of taken some shots. I thought what was interesting was that he once again went back to Kenny Pickett, and he focused it through, the fact that he thought Kenny Pickett could have been a good starter for them, and that they basically ran him through a wood chipper. They didn't give him anything to really support him being a good starter. And he kind of went through the list of all the problems that they ultimately had. I thought that's interesting because this is sort of the toll you pay with Aaron Rodgers is you start to get criticism, and it starts to come through, even though he's talking about a different player, it's through the Rodgers prism. He's having this conversation because of the Rodgers pursuit, and he's going back and digging up stuff out of the cemetery, right? He's going back and, taking a shot at Omar Khan, the general manager, for how the roster was built, taking a shot at Mike Tomlin, the head coach, over the circumstances that they stuck Kenny Pickett through. And, when I listen to it, I'm like, this is it. This is what you pay. This is the price you pay when you go, when you start getting entangled with Rodgers. People come out of woodwork and they start talking about you, whether it's directly how this is a bad decision, or they start dissecting the other things you did to fail as an organization. But this, the impetus of the conversation begins as sort of a Rodgers conversation. So, it's definitely going to be, the closer we get to full squad minis and he's not signed, you have to look at, you have to look at the decisions they made up until this point, and he has to be on the field for full squad minis. I think they want that. And I think they want it for two reasons. Number one, he's got to be signed. He's got to be in the fold. He's got to meet the other veterans, because there's a chance that guys start turning when they're like, oh, he's just not going to show up until training camp. Then they're going to, I think privately, they'll start to have a problem with that. And then number two, there remains this, I'm telling you, and Fowler reported it, but I've been hearing it, going all the way back to, prior to the draft, and then the Minnesota Vikings acquiring Sam Howell. There remains people around the league that are like, he's playing a game right now. He's sitting there and he's going to wait this out. And they're like, I guarantee you, if he is not on the field for full squad minis, he's waiting to see how McCarthy does in Minnesota for full squad minis. And he's waiting to see if maybe the Vikings have second thoughts once they get some real, actual competitive reps with McCarthy on the field. I don't see it. Minnesota's got ownerships out there saying great things about McCarthy. He looks physically bigger. When I saw some of the footage of him, I think Minnesota's totally devoted to it. I think Rodgers is just screwing around right now, and but again, if he's not on their practice, if he's not out there practicing in full squad minutes, if he's not signed at that point, the Steelers paint themselves into a really bad corner, and it's going to be an extended run of people just looking at both the general manager and the head coach and going, "What did you do? Like, look what you did. Now it's a real problem."
So Charles, Stephon Diggs. Well, what was he? Was that like pink sweet and low for coffee? What was he handing out on the boat there? What's going on there? This is great for Vrabes. I'm sure Vrabes is enjoying this.
Interesting looking party.
Yeah.
Yeah, guys got to get off boats, man. Never, it's always remember obviously we all remember the Love Boat in Minnesota. That was one of the greatest boat related psycho stories of all time. But then remember the Giants? The Giants,
oh yeah,
they were out and they took that picture where they were all on the boat, and that literally, like, there are fans and people in the organization who still point at that as like the time when everything went wrong. Like, it was like, if you trace it back, like, it was never the trajectory of where they were going was never the same again after this. I have no idea. Like, I'm not speculating on what that was or any of that stuff. It was interesting watching Vrabel dance around it and say
it was a masterclass Vrabel answer is what it was.
It was absolutely without. Yeah. He what was the quote he said? We want to make
great decisions on and off the field.
Yeah. Okay. Great decisions on and off the field. Yeah. It was, but immediately I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, man. Like, they're dying for, offensive answers for Drake May. They go and they get this guy, coming off a knee injury. And then this is kind of the introduction that you get, to him, these questions. And you're like, what is he doing right now? He's just like, and another thing too, someone pointed out when the video came out, someone was like, probably shouldn't even be on a boat after a knee injury. Like, somebody was like, there are teams where they're like, if you suffer an Achilles tear or you tear up your knee, you're rehabbing your knee or anything like that, you're not going to be on a boat. You're not going to be on a jet ski. You're not going to be anywhere near water where there's like slippery surfaces. Like, that's a real thing. Like, teams get really out of joint when someone's rehabbing an injury like that. And, you got a guy who's out on a boat, and they're like, okay, well, you're getting in and out of a boat. Like it feels like nitpicking, but I'm telling you that is something that I guarantee you inside the Patriots organization, they're like, why is he on a boat? Forget everything else that's going on in that video. Why is he even on a boat when he's rehabbing a torn ligament?
So
Well,
Charles,
you do need it's rest and relaxation, but yeah, I get it.
A little R&R before training camp starts. So Charles, we talked with you about the Caleb Williams stuff with the book from Wickersham coming out and the process of him and his father and everything that led up to him being drafted by the Chicago Bears and the storm around that. Well, he decided yesterday to get on the offensive and address that. What did you make of Caleb Williams and his response to a lot of noise around him right now in Chicago?
I mean, what else? I really, realistically, what else can he do? Like at this point, I mean, it's out. You can't. I think to me, he had to address it. Because it's just going to be this lingering thing that gets talked about and dragged around forever. So either you ignore it and then it really never goes away, or you just, you come out, you try to hit it head on and whatever, people think about your stance on it is what it is, but you've tried to, manage it as early as possible so you can try to, I don't think you move past it unless, he's got to see, he's going to have to stand up and he's going to have to say something about it. And, I thought it was more interesting that we're now hearing like Ben Johnson wants him to clean up like his body language and stuff. And I'm like, oh man, we're going back to the draft. Like this is like stuff that, we're digging up all this stuff that Wickersham and the book and the pre-draft process and that all that noise. And then Ben Johnson's like, his body language got to be better. That was a big thing pre-draft where it was like, I don't know, man. He looks, there are times where he looks frustrated or how he carries himself. You don't want to see, Jay Cutler's it at times, and that's not great. And I'm like, man, he needs a win. Honestly, he needs the worst way. He needs, and I don't know, I guess, when you get into mini camp and, if he just looks great out there, that's the win that you get. That's the positive you get going into training camp. But he definitely needs something before the break, because you don't want this to be what lingers, for the next, 2 months before you finally get onto a practice field in July. But, I don't know, you guys, you tell me. At this point, Caleb, this is sort of what you signed up for with Caleb, and until you can, shift it in the right direction on the field, and Ben Johnson can, make whatever strides he can make with him. We're going to keep going back to this.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's at least handled it all right. Obviously, this is a very, very dad manufactured situation, but it's also the Bears.
You can't ignore it, right? I mean, that's the thing, right? Like,
Sure,
there's no way he could ignore this.
Yeah, no. So, where's Jalen Ramsey going to be, Charles?
It's funny because when Jerry Jones came out before the draft and he said all that stuff about, maybe making some trades or whatever, making some moves, everybody around the league, immediately they were like, they started pointing at Ramsey because the Cowboys needed a corner, and they started to point out, obviously the need at wide receiver, and the fact that the Pittsburgh Steelers had a wide receiver that they wanted to get out of the wide receiver room. Obviously, the wide receiver situation resolved the way people around the league thought it would, and now I'm wondering if Ramsey's actually going to happen as well. So I think you see like the Raiders have so much money the next couple of years that you could see some sensibility there, because again, there's need. I think the Rams would have him back if they not on the salary that he has now. Like maybe if they cut that salary, by 20, 30, maybe 40%, then the Rams would look at potentially bringing him back into the fold. He's still a good player. That's the thing. He's, I'd still put him at he's like a top 10 corner in the league. I don't think he's an all pro. Like, I don't know. Yeah. He definitely wasn't my all pro on my ballot, but I still think he's worthwhile for a team, or if there's I think maybe Detroit would be an interesting situation too, because I still think they could add another great veteran quarterback. The problem with Detroit, they're way over the cap next year, and they need to, roll the cash they have this year in the next year to kind of help with that. Plus they have other extensions they have to do. So probably not Detroit, but I do think Dallas has to be on the radar. I think, Vegas is probably on the radar. I would not count the Rams out either. The Rams quietly, especially if you bring Ramsey back in the fold, like the Rams are looking like they could maybe make a little Super Bowl run next year. I think that's definitely possible. Like I would count them amongst like the top, 2 or 3 teams in the NFC that I would put up for potential Super Bowl favorites.
Charles, what's your gut feeling on how you think this Trey Hendrickson situation will end?
I think the Bengals are dug in. Either here's the thing, he's going to miss game checks and cost himself that money, or I think he comes in and he plays, but I don't think the deal gets addressed. I think this to me kind of feels like old school Bengals, where it's like, all right, we just paid 2 wide receivers like in a way that we don't normally pay players. We paid, Joe Burrow's getting paid through the nose. This is where we're at with Hendrickson, and obviously age is what it is. We're not tearing up his deal and getting him, into the $30 million territory, which I think ultimately is the division here. I mean, it's a huge gap, and I think they'll put it to him. They're like, all right, if you want to come in and miss game checks, you can come in and miss game checks, and that's just how it'll be. We'll go out and try to win games, by outscoring teams, scoring 35 points, 40 points. And that's how we'll have to win games. I mean, they're kind of already that way anyway. The defense is still going to be giving up a ton of points next year. And not having Hendrickson there would be a massive problem. But this does not feel like they're really going to get anything done here. Not especially, I truly believe he wants to get into that $30 million, that tier. And the Bengals aren't doing that. I've seen and heard they're not even. It's a non-starter. Like they're just not doing it. So I don't see him missing game checks. Not at the age that he's at now. I mean, you just don't leave money out there at this point.
All right, so Matt from Camden asking this on the text line, Charles, about Rodgers. If Rodgers doesn't sign with the Steelers, he says that would be a perfect place to trade Levis because you'll probably get a little more. They'll be so desperate. But beyond that, do you know of any teams out there that have any sort of, that look at Levis like, there could be something there? Like, could you see? No, not at all, period. That was a quick no.
I just don't. I think he fell in the draft for a reason. And I don't think. Now, I'll say this, though. I was surprised when the Packers went and got Willis, right? And that's another thing too, when people kind of bang on Levis, and there's Malik Willis played well last year when he was forced to be start some games, and obviously one of them was against Tennessee, and I think he played at a level I was shocked. Like I thought it was going to be a total disaster, and I think he showed growth. I think that's a good thing for Levis. I think it's it's a scenario where you're like, okay, this is a guy that's definitely got, like I said, the tools, and he's put together and like a very prototypical quarterback that you'd love to have. He's a good athlete. But I haven't heard of anybody in the market right now to go and get a Will Levis, but I'll be honest, that it's not like I've been casting a net out there going like, hey, I don't have a lot of
it's
Will
not
Levis
top of your mind.
conversations at this point. No, I mean,
one more question for you. How about that Will Levis?
Yeah. No, if I'm talking about quarterbacks, it's like people are griping about Rodgers or wondering what the heck's going on there. Or, Kirk Cousins, what's going to happen in Atlanta? Is he going to get out? Like, there's not a lot of like, hey, who's going to go get Levis? There's not a lot of those conversations happening though. I'll say this though. I don't think he's valueless. I don't because I would have thought, honestly, given how Malik looked on the field, I would have thought he was valueless for the Packers. Clearly he was not valueless for the Packers. Like they saw, hey, there's something still to work with there. I guarantee you there are some personnel people, a field who are still sitting there going, Levis has got a ton of, he's got a ton to work with. Like we can absolutely bring him in and, bring him in as a backup and groom him and kind of see how it looks. I guess, if anything, maybe I would look at like, what are the prototypes out there as starters that fit? Like who else out there kind of looks like Levis? What offensive scheme kind of makes sense for what Levis can do? And then that's where you kind of start to try to find fits. But yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I have not. I can make that homework if you want.
We'll expect a
That'd be great.
full Will Levis and Tim Boyle update next week, if you don't mind.
Oh my goodness. All right. Yeah, I will do that. I'll let me start texting right now.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. Charles, appreciate you as always, my friend. Thanks so much for taking time to be with us, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right, guys. Take care.
Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports, our guest. Lots to react to there from Charles. We'll do that next. Robbie and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Tune in to 102.5 The Game tomorrow for your NCAA baseball regionals coverage. The number 1 seed Vanderbilt Commodores hosting number 4 Wright State at Hawkins Field. First pitch at approximately 5 o'clock. Coverage also available on the Game Nashville app and at theGameNashville.com. Robbie and Rexrode brought to you by First Horizon. Big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. Live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Appreciate Charles Robinson for being with us in the last segment there. It was a pretty quick no from Charles in terms of the whether or not he's heard anything on the Will Levis front in terms of teams interested via trade at this point, Joe.
Yeah. No. And again, like you said, also, it's not like it's top of mind when he's talking to people. Look, I do think he did say he's not valueless, and I think that it's an interesting point about Willis. It's like get somebody out of Nashville, they might look a little different, you know.
Maybe so.
Get
not be a
somebody
bad
out
thought.
of that franchise, and all of a sudden they look different. We see some other players from both of the football and hockey local professional teams go elsewhere and do well. But
what's going on around here?
Yeah, but I do think that Levis is going to get a lot of preseason work, right? If he's around, if they don't move him before then, he will be out there a lot. And people get hurt. And if I'm seriously, everything I've seen from Will Levis, we've been here for, the front row seat of all that he's done. If I'm an NFL GM and it's basically it's a very, you're taking a flyer, it's cheap because it will be cheap. The Titans are getting very little no matter what for him. But I'm not totally down on that idea at all. I like the intangibles. I like the talent. Obviously, you have no idea if he'll ever put it together and be a starting quality quarterback, but I'd take a flyer on him. He's not gonna, and again, goes back to like the draft process, and I think people totally, in some cases, probably just like tried to bury him, through back channels. But I mean, he's gonna be like, he'll be fine here. He'll be fine wherever he goes in terms of being in the locker room, and he's got talent.
He does. I also thought it was interesting to get Charles's thoughts on, kind of that conversation we've been talking about of the reps, how they're going to be divvied up, and like what the charade and song and dance kind of ultimately means at the end of it. And like, I guess I'm largely with Charles from the standpoint of it doesn't really matter until training camp comes around, because training camp is when you're getting your meaningful reps. And, I think Cam Ward probably needs as much of that as he could possibly get heading into the season. But, even Charles was talking about, like, we all know that Cam Ward's going to end up being the starter at the end of it. He brought up the Bo Nix example of how, Sean Payton went through this charade of, Jarrett Stidham may start at quarterback for us, even though we all knew that Bo Nix was going to be the starting quarterback. So it's interesting kind of the different viewpoints on coaches and why they do this when we all know that the end result is pretty much a given. And that is that Cam Ward is going to be the starter.
Right. I get the idea of it. It's an interesting thought. I hadn't thought of it in the way he put it. Engineering a win, like you're engineering your first win.
Right.
And so, you want things to go that way. It's just like, you just don't know for sure how things will go. You don't know for sure how people will perform or react to the situation. So look, I mean, it's not the end of the world at all. And maybe it is beneficial to have someone on the field who, when you start on the first day of camp, is ahead of you in the offense and is at that point potentially playing better than you. Maybe that's a good thing, but it's not it gets complicated if like that continues. And then again, like the reps are just, they're just handed over to you, even though you haven't earned them. The Titans want him to earn them. And he probably will. Like, I would guess that he would over time. But also then it's kind of like, if you start the season with him, did you give him every rep? I just don't agree with Charles on like the whole, well, you just give a guy a job. I mean, I'm sorry, man. If you use the first pick on someone, what are you saying? You are the number 1 pick in the entire draft, but you might not start. And I understand it's quarterback, but in this day and age, like, they don't really sit that much anymore. unless there's a great situation like
Right.
Kansas City with Alex Smith.
Right. And again, even then, you're not talking about the number one pick, right? Like this is the
Right.
number one pick in the draft. So it's just different when it comes down to that. I will say, like, I was loosely familiar with all the Stephon Diggs stuff, right? Like he was, obviously he's dating Cardi B. So he's out there on the boat and they've got whatever that pink substance was that they were passing around out there. I will say though, Joe, when I saw the Vrabel press conference yesterday and he got up there and he was just like, we want our team, our players to make great decisions, and it's all about great decisions. And it was basically his long way of not answering a single specific thing about Stephon Diggs. Like they even asked him at one point yesterday, Joe, like, had he talked to Diggs? And he was like, I talked to all of our players, whether they're here or not. And I was like, we're back, baby. We are fully back in Mike Vrabel.
Don't do dumb that hurt the team.
Welcome back, Vrabes.
It made me think of the plane from Green Bay aftermath. He wouldn't answer like he got some good questions about is there normally alcohol in the planes? And I was like, yes, that is a question. And you did say words, and now I will say some other words, and then we'll just keep going.
What are you doing with your hands?
All I know is, so I have this. I always have this ready. You see this if you're watching. See this? You see this on the screen?
I do see it.
Okay, that's stevia in the raw. That's my. I put that stuff in my coffee. I guess I'd be curious at whatever Diggs had if that would be good in my coffee.
Maybe some good advice from Charles of just maybe stay off the boat. Boat doesn't seem like it's going very well for a lot of these guys over the last.
Or
few
at
years.
least don't film it. Have someone filming the whole thing.
It's like, hey, could you put your phone down, please? Thank you.
I mean, did you not notice the person standing right there filming this entire thing? Hey, everybody.
I will say, what a world we live in. Like the amount of things in the sports world that end up on like Instagram Live or just being live tweeted out there, whatever it is. Like I think back to, Antonio Brown live streaming in the Pittsburgh locker room and how much trouble he got in on that. Or like one of Deebo Samuel doing the live stream when he was talking about his contract situation and brought up like AJ Brown, and we talked about it for a show, or like AJ Brown post-surgery doing a live. We've talked a lot about live
AJ Brown.
streams. It's like, hey, it's AJ Brown. How about that? He's right after getting his tonsils removed or whatever happened there.
I forgot about that surgery one. Yeah. Yeah. When you're in the grips of like heavy, like sedation and pain killing, it might not be a time to do a video.
It's like, good gracious, we got a lot of live streams going on out there in the sports world. So
it's a beautiful thing. We didn't used to have this stuff.
We didn't. There's no doubt. Interested to see what happens with Stephon Diggs. We'll see if there's any sort of investigation into that.
Boy, good luck, Vrabes.
Congratulations, Drake May.
Yeah.
Good luck dealing with that. 6-1.
Well, the funny
ahead.
thing is, like, there was a recent, practice, and it was like, oh my God, May and Diggs look amazing. It's like, well, Diggs was all hyped up, man.
Yeah.
All amped up.
Apparently so. 615-737-1025, our phone number. One more segment coming next. Some thoughts to get to on the text line. Plus, we'll get to more of your thoughts regarding the Jonathan Marchessault discussion we had earlier in the program. All that coming up. Robbie and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Welcome back in. Final segment of the day. Robbie and Rexrode, 102.5-106.3 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. A lot of people asking about Pittsburgh with Will Levis, Joe. So let's operate under the assumption that for some reason Rodgers doesn't end up there, for whatever reason that may be. If you're Pittsburgh, would you have any interest in Levis whatsoever? I mean, think about that combo that they could have at that point of Levis and Rudolph. It worked out spectacularly for the Titans last year.
Probably not.
You know what we should do? We should take the Tennessee Titans quarterback room from last year. I think that might make the difference against Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow, et cetera, et cetera. Like Weston Clarksville said, would Pittsburgh not be a good fit? No, if they not got Rodgers. I guess, you know, like I said to him, teams don't view Will Levis as a starter. I would view Will Levis, if I was a GM in this league, as a project, as someone who has talent, who seems to have, you know, the right approach and is a pro and all that stuff. And you could, like, it's there's something there. But like, oh, we're missing our. I mean, if I'm the Steelers and I lose out on Rodgers, I'm calling Atlanta.
Yeah,
and I'm getting someone who's a proven good quarterback in the NFL who has been a good starter for a long time. Like Will Levis just has not demonstrated that he's a starting quarterback in the NFL. Maybe he will someday, but he's a project. Wes says, yeah, but I'd rather have options. They're looking really stupid waiting on Rodgers. I'd let Levis be my starter before Rodgers. Yeah, like I mean,
that's a hot take.
You would. You had Will Levis and Aaron Rodgers in the room, and you're like, I'm going to take Levis my starter. Why? I mean, again, Rodgers has diminished, and the circus around him is ridiculous. But like he's still
a way better player.
Yeah, he's still a good. Yeah, like look at what he did last year. That Levis may never approach that in the NFL. So come on. I mean, it's so I suppose if it's like so desperate and Atlanta can't work something out with Atlanta, you know, but to me, it's more like a team that loses a backup or something.
Yeah.
You know, and again, I don't think he's a bad project to take a flyer on. I wouldn't be surprised if at some point someone decides to do so.
Joe, we brought up the Jonathan Marchessault situation earlier. If you missed that conversation, you can check it out, Robbie and Rexrode, wherever you get your podcast. Should Barry Trotz and the Predators try to move on from him this offseason in your mind?
Well, like answering that question is just like, as I don't know. Like I don't, like you said earlier, Robbie, did he in those conversations with Trotz just say, yeah, man, I think I want to be somewhere else? I mean, then the answer is very clear and easy. I just don't know everything. With everything I know, not necessarily. With everything I know, I'm still looking at. First of all, it's just going to be like screaming all the way until the season starts. And anybody who thinks they should youth movement, or anybody who thinks that if they get to 85 points next year and show a little progress, that's okay. That's absurd. That's ridiculous. Just because they were terrible last year doesn't mean they can do anything but try to win, and everything you can do to put the best team on the ice next year to win, get to the playoffs, and do damage in the playoffs. And so if Marchessault is actually like a problem, then okay, then you have to do it. But again, I don't mind frankness, and also you need talent. You need people who can put the puck in the net, and he can do that.
It's going to be very interesting to see what becomes of that this offseason, if anything. That's going to do it for us today here on the program. Joseph, safe travels on the way back. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Say hi to everybody for me.
I will do that. 615 Open coming up later today. Very much looking forward to that. We'll be back 6 a.m. tomorrow. Chasing Big Joe up next. 102.5, 106.3 The Game.